Hello and welcome to the Yocto Project Summit 2021.11, a virtual conference to discuss and do all things Yocto project related. So the YPS grew out of something that we had that was called a Dev Day. In my experience, the majority of people who work with the Yocto project tend to be embedded developers. And the Linux Foundation for quite a few years now has been putting on an embedded Linux conference twice a year. And over time, it just was a natural place for Yocto developers to congregate and to meet each other and to hang out. And so over time, we realized that there was a need to have sort of a bit of an add-on. It's normal to have add-ons to the Embedded Linux conference. There's often an IoT summit that's associated with it. There used to be an Android Builders Summit that was associated with it as well. U-Boot has had a couple add-ons. If a whole bunch of people are going to fly to one city and get hotels and all that sort of stuff, it just sort of makes sense to do other embedded sort of stuff around the event. So we would all come for the 3 days of ELC or ELCE, and then spend the extra day or two and have sort of our dev day. And dev day always consisted of a beginner track in one room uh, with sort of an introductory tutorial, an all-day tutorial to introduce you to the Yocto project and what it does and what you can do with it. And then as in a second room, we always had the hands-on, which if you were familiar with the Yocto project, but were still a bit hesitant to sort of dive in and get into it, or you had used it a little bit, but weren't aware of all of its features and stuff, we certainly understand that it can be a bit overwhelming. And so putting a board actually physically in front of a person and saying, here, build an image, load it on, run it, do this, do that, add this, configure that, change this, we found really helped a lot of people. For reasons that are related to COVID and some that aren't related to COVID, we ended up having to switch to an online format, of course. And so last year, roughly this time, we had our first virtual event. And at that time, we were still connected to the Embedded Linux conference. And so at the Embedded Linux conference, there's always quite a few Yocto related talks. So what we did last year was we had a virtual dev day, and we were all quite hesitant about that. We had no idea how it would work. And it turns out it worked quite well. We got lots of positive feedback. We were quite happy with it. We were able to reach an audience that was broader than we would normally. It takes a lot of resources to fly someplace, and hotels, and attending ELC is not cheap, of course. And so we were quite excited by that. So at the beginning of this year, we thought, well, could we do a whole mini conference just around Yocto project itself? And so we were crazy enough to give it a try, and we were quite thrilled with how it went. We needed 100 people to sign up in order to break even financially, and we ended up in May with 367 people who joined. So we were very excited about that. We got lots of positive feedback, and as of this morning, there are 308 registrants for this iteration. So we're thrilled to have you along, and and this format for now seems to work well, where we still have the virtual dev day, but we've also paired it with 2 days of presentations, which I think has been going really well. So it's our third virtual event, but it's technically our second YPS. We're still tweaking the format. We did something new this time, different this time than we did last time. I think this format is good going forward. I think it's a good template to repeat. But anyway, we certainly appreciate and enjoy any feedback. Because we are a virtual conference, everyone's getting really good at virtual conferences now. So, but it doesn't hurt to repeat to please keep your microphone muted. The talks have 30-minute slots. Usually at a conference, talks will have like an hour-long slot where they'll talk for 40 minutes, and then you have 10 minutes for QA, and then you need some time to get to your next room, and you're physically bumping into people in the hallway all the time and saying hi. Um, and so, but with the online format, I think a more compressed format works better to have 30-minute slots. And we want to make sure that the speakers can get through their topics. And so ideally, if possible, try to keep your questions to the end just to make sure they get through everything. Then if there's time left, and if there isn't time left, then that's what the chat channel is for. Please keep your video turned off. You can turn it on if you want to ask a question or whatever, but that's not a requirement. All the videos, all the resources, the slides, the layers that were used as part of the hands-on yesterday, all those resources will be available afterwards on either YouTube and on the elinux.org website. The conference, of course, is occurring here in Zoom, but if you're having issues with Zoom because of perhaps corporate firewalls or whatnot, we are doing a simultaneous live stream to YouTube, and there's the link there. The platforms that we are using, we're using pre-talks for the schedule. So if you were a speaker and wanted to submit a paper for consideration, that was all done through pre-talks. All the choosing which papers to accept and whatnot was all done through pre-talks. And then, of course, since that was all done, since all the papers were organized there, that became the logical place to have the schedule. So that's where the schedule is. If you are looking for the slides for the individual talks, then the slides are also there. If you click on the actual presentations themselves, if you look at the whole schedule and then click on something, you will find a link at the bottom to the slides or any other resources that the speaker has added. We are using Zoom, of course, and the YouTube simultaneous cast for the actual video itself. And we are using, there's a back channel, basically. In previous incarnations, we have used Slack. But it occurred to us because a lot of us use Slack, but one of the main, probably the best channel for support and help and stuff for if you're working with the Yocto project is through our IRC channel. We're using the Libera IRC server, and on there are a whole bunch of channels, one of which is #OE and another one is #Yocto. And we have email lists and all that sort of stuff too, but like with most or many open source projects, the email list is mostly a place for patch, a submission and discussion and stuff like that. And questions can sort of get lost there. People who are looking for support, one of the primary channels is IRC. So we thought the conference tends to bring in people who are using Yocto perhaps or are interested in it, but might not be aware of, might not be sort of part of the community and sort of aware of all the resources. So we thought if we have people using the IRC during the conference, then maybe they'll stick around after and continue using it and realize what a great resource this is for support and whatnot. And I've set up a page on the eLinux website that will host links to the Zooms when they're available, a link, sorry, to the YouTube, the individual links to the individual talks, and the slides will be there, and links to the various resources and repositories that were used as part of the hands-on and whatnot. So afterwards, well, a lot of the slides are up there already, but afterwards you can go there and find all the links for the individual talks if you want, or you could visit the Yocto Project's channel on YouTube. eLinux website is a website that's been around for many years and contains an enormous wealth of embedded Linux specific information. And so becoming familiar with that website would be in your good interest. So schedule overview, yesterday was day 0, which simultaneously we ran the beginner's tutorial and the hands-on classes. Today we have the presentations for the first roughly 6 hours. And then afterwards in this channel, when we're all done, we will sort of hang out and have sort of a social free-for-all, basically. Um, and it can be technical, it can be show and tell, it can be, whatever you want. And then tomorrow we'll have presentations. Now, following the Yocto Project Conference, there will be an Open Embedded Developers Meeting, which is also something that over the past number of years, we've had almost at associated with every Embedded Linux conference. And so we are doing that again as part of this conference. It's an opportunity for people who are actually working on the core of Open Embedded and the Yocto project to discuss big items, sort of blue sky stuff, documentation or syntax changes, and sort of the big stuff. Get together, discuss, whatnot. The Yocto project has a shop. Our intrepid community manager, Nicolas Dechesne, has put together this shop where you can buy all your official Yocto gear, such as this beautiful shirt that I'm wearing. You can get the Yocto logo put on mugs, backpacks, hoodies, t-shirts, all sorts of extra stuff. And as a special treat, last year, the Yocto project celebrated its 10th year, and we had a special 10th year a logo made up for that and merchandise. So you can go there and get all your swag. The planning committee for this conference included our community manager, Nicolas Dechesne, Josef, the Yocto Jester, David Reyna, Bian, and myself. And I want to give a huge shout out and a huge thank you for all their work and help in planning all this. I want to give an enormous thank you to Lenaro and the Linux Foundation for providing the Zoom channels that we're using. Zoom is quite expensive, and these were donated free of charge to us. I want to especially point out Michael Halstead, who Michael Halstead lives in the Pacific time zone in North America and was up, well, basically he only got 2 hours of sleep in the day leading up to the hands-on. It was his job to manage all the virtual machines, all those accounts that you had, handling login issues, all that sort of stuff. I mean, and it's enormous thank you to him. It's well outside, well goes beyond and above what's expected. He always does a fantastic job, and we're hugely indebted to him for that work and the continuing work that he does keeping our build servers up and stuff. I would also like to thank LF for handling the money, the registration and all that stuff, sending out those emails with the links and everything. That was all done through them. That is enormous help. I want to especially thank all the presenters and the attendees and all the Yocto project members, the companies who have joined the Yocto project and donate time and resources and money. And I especially want to give a huge shout out to our intrepid leader, the lead developer of the Yocto project and Open Embedded, Richard Purdy. It's not just a job to many of us, and it's not a job to Richard. The amount of hours that he spends is incredible. It's a lifestyle leading a project like this, and we are certainly grateful for everything he does. At the end of the conference, you'll get an email that'll have a link to a survey. Please fill it out. We are very interested in all your feedback. And 2 people who fill out the survey will be selected at random to receive a $50 gift card to the swag shop that I talked about. And if you're not familiar with us, we are, of course, developers, and we do a lot of work online, but we're also a community. We're not just Nix and IRC or names on email. We're actually people. And we love getting together physically at conferences, Embedded Linux conference, especially, and a bunch of others, and on site and online. But we're people. We get along sometimes. We discuss things sometimes, and we want you to be part of that community. We have mailing lists. We also hold virtual meetings every week, on Tuesday. We have a developers meeting where we get a status update of how the project's going, what's being released, what's in QA, blah, blah, how things are going, the biggest fires that are occurring this week. And then the rest of the hour is an opportunity to sort of, well, hey, I was working on this. It's not really I did a build last night and it didn't work type meeting, but it's a sort of we should think about adding SPDX files, or how do we do this, and stuff like that. One thing that we were asked about was jobs, actually. As the Yocto project grows in its interest, we get more and more people and companies using it. And we do have a job site as part of where companies are welcome to post jobs. And if you're looking for work, then it might be a place to go. There'll probably be more work in this and in time, but we do have that sort of set up. And I wanted to talk about the Open Embedded Happy Hour. With the onset of COVID and the inability of getting together physically, the people at the Open Embedded community decided to put together a monthly sort of get together, which will be very similar to the social hour type thing that we're going to have at the end of today's presentations. And it's just an opportunity to get together and chat and meet the other people and sort of connect to them as people instead of technically. And so anyway, so that's the link for that. You can find the schedule. And speaking of community, I'd like to introduce the Yocto Project's community manager, Nicolas Dechesne.
All right. Can you confirm you can hear me well,
Yep.
Trevor?
Yep.
Okay. Good morning, good evening, good day, everyone. Thank you for being with us today. Yeah, I'm just going to talk like for a few minutes. I have some quick project updates to share. Hopefully it won't take too much. I want to repeat and echo Trevor's message, and I want to thank everyone for joining today. This is a very important event for our community. This is new, as you've heard, I mean, from Trevor, but this is also like the place where we get to meet, where we get to organize, meetings between all the users of the project and the, developers of the project. So we have many places where the developers usually meet, but for us, getting access to people using the project as, happy users or non-happy users is very important. And that's what this summit is about, is putting together users and contributors into the same room, so to say. So thanks for joining. I know it's very early, very late somewhere for you, so it's not always convenient, but we really appreciate that. And yes, these events continue to be successful, and as long as they are, we'll do our best to continue to organize them. So a few things today. So the most obvious one is the Yocto project wouldn't be the Yocto project without its members. I just want to take like a few seconds to recognize who are the companies that actually contribute to the project. So there is the community of developers, of course, but the project is also very sustainable thanks to the members of the project. So we are always looking for new members, and if you are interested, you can always come and talk to me. A couple of updates. I'm hoping most of you are familiar with where we are in terms of the Yocto project release, but the current LTS, which is 3.1, which was released like more than 2 years ago, will have its next release, 3.1.12, in the next few days. We've just released 3.4 last month, now it's a month and a half ago. And yes, we're happy to see we got like 170 developers involved in that release, and that's always a pleasure for us to make a new release. The next release is expected to be, as usual, done in April, and will be 3.5. 3 years ago, we announced the project LTS. That's a new initiative that we started. That was something that was a big demand from the user base of the project. 3.1 was the first LTS, and we recently made the decision to extend the long-term support from 2 years to 4 years. So I think it's been discussed, but I'm just repeating that here. 3.1 will be maintained until April 2024, while it was initially planned to be maintained until only 2022. It's an experimentation that we are doing to see if it actually is a strong benefit from the Yocto project community. And for now, we are not changing the process. The next LTS is 3.5. It will be supported for 2 years, and we'll see, how we are doing with our capabilities to actually maintain two LTS in parallel as soon as 3.5 is released. So if you have any feedback on the LTS, if you are a strong user on the LTS, or if on the other side you actually don't think the LTS is a good idea, you can always just give your feedback and come to us, and we can discuss about these things. Documentation is at the heart of what the Yocto project has been. We have been very well known for like excellent documentation over the years, and that it has helped the project a lot. But unfortunately, documentation is actually never done. It always need more work, and it's one area where anybody can contribute. If you are a user of the project, and even if you don't know Python, if you don't know the ins and outs of the project, you can always help with documentation. So that's a very good way to get started with the project. And there is a dedicated mailing list for that. And if you need any help, you can always ask me as well. Community data stats that we try to share from time to time when we meet. The first thing is we use this tool from Bitergia that gives us some dashboards that actually look at Git and emails and Bugzilla, and give us some like nice charts about everything you want to know. All kind of analytics about the project. So we made this two dashboard for people to actually have a look about the project, so that you have the link here. And yes, so if we look at the main way people interact with the project beyond IRC, which Trevor just mentioned, is mailing list, through mailing list. So we have almost like 5,000 accounts on the various mailing lists that we have. So we have like dozens of mailing lists for different topics. I definitely encourage that you at least join the biggest mailing list, the Yocto mailing list, the OpenML mailing list, just to be part of the project and receive updates. And then we have also started to develop and to build, as much as possible, our presence on social media. So if you really want to participate in what we do on the social media, LinkedIn and Twitter today are the main tools that we use. You can see, we keep, trying to build, our followers and on these platforms. We've recently started with Instagram, so I guess that's something you can ask Joseph if you want to know why and the ins and outs of that. It's an experiment that we are trying, so this is one of the interesting platform. So if we look back, this is directly graphs that you can get from the dashboard I shared before, the links I shared. So it's basically what the things we usually do is we look at POCI, like the core, all the core project, the core Git project that actually make up POCI is basically what we call the Yocto project core. And the non-core is, everything else which is actually around the Yocto project. So we try to monitor many places, many Git trees, many mailing lists. If your project is not monitored by us, you can always ask me and we can add that. But that's basically, we try to monitor who is contributing and companies and engineers and so on. So this is just nice stats. I just wanted to show what kind of things we are monitoring. That's another view, way of looking at the project. If we look at the complete history of the project, what we can see is that it has become fairly stable in terms of developers contributing and commits, which is a sign that the project has reached like a stage where it is a very stable and mature project, which is but there's also things that we are looking at. And same, we have the split between the core and the non-core. Okay, so finally, I know the Yocto project is actually there are so many people involved and just like everywhere. I just wanted to give a quick recognition to a few individuals that over the last years I've been doing some very amazing contribution to the project. So Quentin has been doing a lot of work on the Yocto project documentation. We actually changed the documentation like 2 years ago, and we moved to Sphinx. And yes, Quentin has been there and helping us a lot. And we wouldn't be where we are today without the work Quentin has done. So many thanks. Joseph, which I'm sure everybody should know, and if you don't know Joseph yet, you will know him very well at the end of the summit. He's our social media guy and resident expert, and he's behind all the social media that we are doing, whether it's Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and also on YouTube. He's actually started this live coding with the Yocto project. It's been a tremendous help to actually bring Yocto to new users to Yocto and teach Yocto to people who are completely new to the project. So highly recommend that you watch what Joseph is doing when he's actually doing anything. And yes, is actually a very interesting contribution for our project. Saul and Josh have been doing a lot of work this year on the SPDX license manifest. It's kind of a difficult topic, but it's a very important topic when you think about what the Yocto project is building, like embedded Linux systems. I mean, we have a top-class system that allows, I mean, license manifests, and a lot of what we can do today is based on, I mean, the work that have been done by Saul and Joshua. So thank you. And then finally, Trevor Gamblin has stepped up as a maintainer for the Auto Builder. So the Yocto project Auto Builder is one of the main piece of IT infrastructure that, I mean, we rely on a daily basis. It's, I mean, we do like tens and tens of builds all the time, and it's a very complex piece of software. And yes, I mean, any help here is always very much needed, and we really appreciate all the work that Trevor's been doing. And finally, there is also something that I don't know, I mean, if everyone is aware, but we have this bug triage team. We have lots of issues which are being managed in Bugzilla, and we need some hands, and we need a lot of people to actually just go through the bugs and assign the bugs and find who is going to fix the bugs and so on. It's a lot of tedious work, which is behind the scenes. You don't see the names in a commit or anywhere, but without, I mean, the work that Andy and Stephen are doing, we wouldn't be able to actually make the release at the quality that we are making today. So thanks everyone. There are like so many other people that would deserve something, but yes, I mean, so at least I wanted to give a few names. So thanks everyone. We are very excited, very happy about having everyone at the summit. And yes, the next 2 days will be a lot of speakers and presentation, and we'll be here to help if you have any issue with setup or anything. And we really appreciate everybody joining us this week. Thank you.